Tele, thank you for joining us. What are your initial thoughts on the peace deal signed in Washington, D.C. between both countries?
Well, thank you for having me, first of all. My initial thoughts are that, as you mentioned, other than the speeches given, this will not be a permanent solution to the crisis that we're seeing in DRC. As you know, this is not a problem that started 2, 3, or even 5 years ago. This is something that has been there since the 90s, after the Rwandan genocide, when Mobutu Sese Seko was still president of then Zaire, and since then we've seen multiple peace deals being signed between Rwanda and DRC on this particular issue. The second thing we have to note, and again you mentioned this on your piece, is the issue regarding the rebel groups and M23. The deal that was signed between the Washington Accords did not include anything to do with M23. Now, it's important to note that there is a separate talks that are being held where the Qataris are mediating between M23 and the DRC government. But as we saw this week, we saw the two parties actually escalating the attacks between each other. The third part is actually the question on the minerals and how will the minerals be used. One of the things that you had President Trump speak during the entire process of this deal is the fact that the US wants to have some sort of access to the minerals. So that question of the minerals, how it will affect the local communities, will be a big question. So I don't believe that this will be a permanent solution. So
also, do you believe that this agreement has the potential to bring peace, even if it's not a permanent solution? Does it have the potential to at least bring peace in the interim? And why do you think so, if you do?
It's difficult to say so because, as you pointed out in your news piece, is that right now we have escalating conflict between M23 and the DRC. There's a big issue regarding the armed groups within DRC and what their role will play. So without them being included in this particular agreement, and without them being included in the agreement and in the issues that are going on, it's difficult to see long-lasting peace or even temporary issues.
So considering Rwanda's past denial of involvement in the DRC conflict, how do you interpret the recent participation in this peace process?
Well, if you look at the agreement itself, one of the things that it notes is that Rwanda agrees to withdraw some of its troops from the DRC. So that clearly means that they have been part and parcel of the conflict. And as I mentioned before, we have seen multiple deals between Rwanda and DRC, including that have been led, by President Kagame. So this clearly means that Rwanda has been part of the problem. As much as they may want to deny it, it is clear that they have been part of the conflict.
So in your view, before we let you go, what are the key factors that will determine whether this peace deal succeeds or fails, either long-term or in the interim?
Yeah. So in my mind, there are two issues. One I mentioned before was the issue regarding the armed groups. That's the M23, but we also have to now bring in FDLR, which Rwanda is obviously been attacking. There needs to be a solution or a way forward regarding what happens to these groups. Do they just disintegrate, and also the support that they get from both the governments of Rwanda and DRC? That will be critical in how things move forward. The second issue, and again I mentioned it before, is the issue of minerals, and I do believe this might be an issue that will be there for a very long time, because clearly there's a lot of interest, not just locally, but internationally, with countries like China, countries like US, fighting for the minerals or fighting for control of the minerals within that area. So the question of what happens to those minerals, how do the local communities, how do they, what do they get from the minerals? What do they get from, the advancements of those minerals will be an important issue.
All right. Thank you so much, political analyst Tele Nzomo, for joining us and, of course, lending your voice to this conversation.
Thank you for having me.